Hello and welcome to the Kick in the Creatives podcast, hosted by myself, Sandra Busby, and my fellow creative Tara Roskell, offering you interviews, inspiration, motivation, and a gentle prod in the right direction. And for lots more information, challenges, and other useful tools to help you get creating, you can go to www.kickinthecreatives.com. And of course, this is where you can also find today's show notes. Enjoy the show.
Our guest today is artist Nick George. I first spotted Nick's work on Instagram and was completely wowed by it. It was different to anything I'd seen before. Nick paints abstract faces. Now imagine the silhouette of an exaggerated face filled with an eye, fragments of text, collage and cartoon characters. They have the feel of street art, a bit like walls where posters and stickers have been layered and then peeled back over time. I was also excited to see that Nick is teaching on Kara Bullock's portrait art course, Let's Face It 2022. You can find it at kickinthecreatives.com/Let's Face It. I'm really looking forward to watching his lesson. I hope you enjoyed the interview.
We're so grateful, Nick, that you joined us today. It's really nice of you to take your time to actually come and chat to us. And the first thing we would love to know is a little bit about your childhood, about how you grew up. Were you interested in art as a child?
I used to, I think maybe when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old, I would just kind of draw different characters in front of the television. But I probably did that for about a year and just completely stopped and headed more in the direction of like sports and performing arts. But that was pretty much it as a kid.
So were any of your family artistic?
Nobody, no.
Oh, like me, actually.
Yeah.
Same, yeah. Did you have an art mentor, a teacher or anybody?
No, nobody. Just I kind of went more in the direction of, playing basketball because I was hyperactive. So it was like a perfect fit. But I was always artistic. But, when basketball took off, it was so demanding that, it was like a runaway train. So, there was no time for, to really explore that side too much.
Right. So you had to sort of pick one or the other, really?
Pretty much, yeah. I remember my teachers sat me down in the room and they said, you can either continue being creative and all this stuff, or you can do basketball. You can't do both. So, basketball gave me an opportunity to kind of travel the world and, do all these amazing things. So I just kind of ran with that at the time. Yeah.
You mentioned performing arts. What did you do? Did you do like drama and things like that?
Oh yeah, everything.
Oh really? Dance?
I did ballet.
Great.
I did tap. I did acting, like all those things at a young age. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do more like expressionist dance, but again, basketball just was like no chance, so I just kind of ran with that.
So you didn't go to art school then as such to learn how to paint. Did you learn that yourself?
I just kind of went online and tried to understand how to build like a foundation before I started creating the way I did, and did a lot of like online learning on YouTube and all these different outlets, pretty much.
So I heard you say in a video, like you mentioned about your basketball, that you actually became a professional basketball player in the US. So tell us a little bit about how you got to that, and then how you went from that and finally got into art again.
Oh wow, so when I was a kid, I ended up playing with my national team, Great Britain, and so I got a lot of attention on from like international scouts, and I moved to America. Did 2 years of high school, played collegiate basketball, Division I at VCU, and from there I actually ended up playing professionally in Europe. So I got offered a contract after college to play in Europe, and I just kind of traveled and bounced around different countries from there. But once the ball stopped bouncing, I spent some years coaching, but I knew deep inside I wanted to do my art, but I just didn't have the courage to step away from that athlete's world. But I think during lockdown, it just gave me the opportunity to just go for it, you know. So
when you went to the US to do basketball in high school, did your parents go with you?
No, I was all alone.
Oh, no. So how old were you then?
I was 16, 17 at the time, yeah.
Oh, wow. That is a big move, isn't it?
Yeah. And I was also living with, and I kind of went from being in a very kind of chaotic environment to suddenly being amongst people who were highly religious, and there was a lot of structure. So, you know, you can imagine at that age, just, you know, there's so much going on. It's,
wow.
Yeah, it was really interesting though.
Yeah, I bet. You must have got quite homesick though, did you?
There were moments when when things got rough my first year, I definitely, you know, would miss certain things about being at home. But, you know, once I kind of pushed through that difficult period, I just, you know, I kind of got lost in whatever I was doing in America. Yeah.
I suppose it really makes sense that you concentrated on your basketball first, because that's something you can't really do forever, isn't it? Whereas art you can do until you're, you know, 90 or 100, do you know what I mean? Whereas basketball, you can't. I think there's an age limit, isn't there, to where you can carry on doing it professionally. And so I suppose, yeah, it does make sense that you did it that way. But you actually paint faces. Anyone who hasn't seen your work, they must go onto your Instagram page, because it's just so amazing. All of your faces are so unusual and unique. But how did you get, I mean, obviously most people when they start painting, they don't really know what they do. They might do some landscapes, they might do seascapes, they might do animals, but you have, your focus is solely on faces now, isn't it? So has it always been that way, or did you start off doing lots of different things first?
Well, I started out just doodling at first, you know, and just kind of letting go, and, you know, didn't really go into anything with an idea of what I wanted it to look like. But yeah, I just, you know, I don't know how I came to this point. You know, when you sometimes just let go, and these are the things that are coming out, and yeah, the portraits were just something that it just happened really. But yeah, I used to work in pen and ink for maybe 2 or 3 years, and then during lockdown, I decided, right, I have a lot more to say, and I just want to really make a push for this. So I started working with different mediums, and this is what came out. You know, it was really just like that.
I think when you're doodling, I think our minds are programmed, aren't they, to see faces in things. So maybe that's part of how that sort of happens, and why it tends to be faces that we see.
Yeah. You just mentioned there that in lockdown, you really started experimenting with different media. And I also saw you say that you wanted to go from these small works to these very large mixed media works. So I'm curious, were those small works, did they look like the paintings you were doing now? Were they kind of pre-sketches for what you were doing?
I think they were completely different. I did a lot of very intricate geometric drawings. Like I would take different silhouettes and then just kind of fill these silhouettes with all these fine lines, and it was very different. It was absolutely nothing. I think there are certain similarities in regards to like how chaotic things are, but it's completely different stuff. Yeah.
Because you're very elusive. We can't see those old things. Did you get rid of them all, or weren't you on social media at the time?
I think at the start of this year, I kind of, you know, I was all like kind of trying to build up my confidence, and I was like, right, I'm just going to eliminate everything I've just done and just, you know, present this new work to the world. But I should like bring some stuff back, because I just have it archived. So.
Yeah, I want to peek at that. Bring it back.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do.
So, I know your paintings have a theme or a message behind them. That's what I heard you say in a video. Can you tell us a bit about that? And also, does your mood dictate how a painting is going to turn out?
Whenever I approach a painting, I always kind of, everything's kind of dictated by what's going on in my mind at the time. or maybe things that have kind of been festering for years that I just want to let go of. And that's usually what happens. And, when I started painting, I realized that, there was a lot of things related to, certain mental health issues, basically all the painful things that I'd ever been through. That's what usually ends up coming out. And I find myself holding on to the positive. And, when you're playing basketball and you're an athlete, sometimes, you can't, people have a certain perception of you, and, it's like, you're this invincible athlete, you're this big, strong figure. And, I just didn't have the courage to say certain things, because, out of a fear of being judged. But, now it's just like, listen, this is everything I've been holding on to. You guys deal with it now. So.
Would we know by looking at your painting?
I was just about to say that. Yeah. It's interesting because your work does leave us asking lots of questions, and that's the kind of work I love.
Yeah, I think I put out maybe a few works at the start of the year, and that was my whole idea in the beginning. And but for this, I was offered a solo show after I put out these works, and for my solo show, I'm kind of making it a little more obvious, I think, of what I'm trying to say. Like, it's not as, it will still leave you guessing, but you can, you have a clearer idea of where I'm kind of going with it, So, but yeah, it's funny you say that, because one thing I always feared, I was like, God, I wonder if people are going to start asking me what this means, and because it's so personal. But I think doing your artwork has also helped me open up and tell my story as well.
So now we need to ask you what one of them means.
Yeah. Do you have a specific idea in your head when you start of what you are sort of hoping to get onto paper, or or is it just a case of you start something and you just see how it develops?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just kind of, I always start kind of sketching out, different ideas, and I completely let go, because, as soon as I start painting, it's so therapeutic, and, it's, I just immediately, there's something that pops into my head, it's almost like everything's almost overflowing in my mind. So as soon as I put that, my pastel to the canvas, it just kind of opens up this door, and I just kind of go with whatever, I'm being told to go with. But yeah, I always found that in the early days, when I was kind of developing my confidence, I would sketch out an idea beforehand, but now it's just going straight in.
Now, you mentioned before that you just started playing with materials. So how did you arrive at this process you've got? Like, what materials did you try? What did you like? What didn't you like?
Oh, yeah. During lockdown, when a lot of these arts and crafts stores started, you could order online and then, go and pick up at the store. So I just bought everything I could, like all types of everything was just like the cheapest stuff at the time, of course. So it was a lot of oils, watercolors, acrylics, pastels, oil pastels, soft pastels. And I just started, and I bought a bunch of sketchbooks and just started exploring, and then by the end of the year in 2020, all these faces started to emerge, and, and that's pretty much how I came to that style. And that was the whole process, just trying everything. Because I saw a video on YouTube of, somebody who was kind of well established, and they had said, don't get so caught up on doing one thing, just try everything, because you never know what could work for you. So.
And you use words and imagery in your work as well. How is that created? Because I see like these pieces of Disney and these words, they almost look like you cut them out, but I don't know. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I use a lot of, I kind of have a mixture of like collage and, also just writing things out, and, I try and do a mixture of, like trying to construct, like doing like, whenever I add text, sometimes I like to, make sure it's all perfect and well designed, and then put it right next to something that's, harshly written, and then I'll add collage next to that. So just mixing all these different different, just to help kind of create these different emotions and feelings. And, you know, whenever I kind of write things out, sometimes I try and use that as a way to kind of create discomfort. And then, you know, it's, so it's all over the place.
So when you use your text, because it does look like a lot of collage as well, and I was wondering actually whether it's all stuff that you've created and then you've torn up and used, or whether part of it is maybe from magazines and things like that. But it sounds like it's all of your own bits that you've just kind of put together. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I collected, like, throughout my journey, I collected all sorts of magazines, magazines from when I was in Italy or when I spent some time in Holland. And, you know, I just kind of like, use all these different types of, methods of creating artwork and telling my story. So if for example, I might have I'm working on telling a story of, what my time was like, in Italy, and I'll find a magazine that I've got stored somewhere and, maybe use a word that maybe has absolutely nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but it's related in some way, so.
And the materials you use then. So I'm presuming obviously it's mixed media, isn't it? I'm imagining acrylics, or is there a lot of different things in your work?
Well, I've narrowed it down to just using acrylics and oil pastels and collage. Yeah, that's kind of a formula that works really well for me at the moment. But I'm looking at adding a lot of maybe oil in the future, because I'm still kind of exploring myself, So I definitely like to add a lot of oil. Yeah, definitely.
Just going back to when you said during lockdown you were making a lot of work. How much work are you actually making? How much art were you making? Were you creating every day or multiple pieces?
Yeah, every single day. Any opportunity I had to do something, I would do it, But yeah, I just kind of bought a bunch of sketchbooks and I was just creating paintings every single day. And I have like hundreds of paintings that are just absolutely awful, It just looks like somebody just vomited on the page.
Do you ever use those, though, the ones that you don't like as sort of bits of collage? Because we always say it's quite a good idea sometimes if you have a painting you don't like it, you can always take bits from it that you like and incorporate it into another piece of work in the future. Is that something you ever do with those ones that you don't like?
It was funny you said that, because I was thinking about that the other day. I was looking back at a lot of my old work and I was thinking, maybe I could glue this onto the canvas and, and kind of use it to depict a moment where I was, really, just taking those first steps. But yeah, that's definitely something. But also, even though all these pieces weren't very good, I would always try and take anything from it that looked, decent and try and bring it over. And that helped me find my style as well. Because I was like, right, this is just sludge. But then there's this little bit here where there's like these white lines running across a blue background. So I'm going to carry that over. And that's kind of how I found my style as well, I think.
So when did this face silhouette emerge? Can you remember kind of the moment?
I think it was, I think pretty much as soon as I started painting, that's I immediately went for the faces. But do you know what it was? I started out working in graphite, so I wanted to kind of actually have the ability to create a portrait, just kind of finding a reference image, grabbing a pencil and being able to work on and making it look as like a lot of realistic work. And then that's when I kind of broke the rules. So I started out drawing portraits with graphite, learning about shading and tone and all these different things. And yeah, just kind of stuck with the faces from there.
Because you have that, it's kind of a symbolic face almost, isn't it, that you use quite a lot now? Just that kind of black, I think it's black, and then you put all your bits inside it. It's just, yeah, so clever.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I think that everyone is pretty much me in a different situation. But yeah.
I didn't realise that it's supposed to represent you, the face.
Yeah, well, the more I look at them, like, right now I'm doing a lot of work, but every now and again I'll kind of stop and try and understand even what I'm doing, because things are pouring out of me even faster than I can try and understand them. So, but the other day I was like, oh, that kind of reminds me of when I was a really rough period in college, or those types of things. But
that's really interesting, because I was just going to say, actually, are any of those faces you do based on people perhaps you've met or and that they don't know it? But obviously, if it's always you. But what would you do then if somebody said to you, I'd love to commission you to do a portrait of me or so and so in that style? I mean, I suppose that would be quite difficult, wouldn't you? Because you'd have to almost look inside their head, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think it's so funny you guys are saying this, because I was thinking about that yesterday. Like, somebody had said, could you draw me like this from this photo? But yeah, I think I would do my best to really tap into that person, and rather than kind of like a lot of the generic things, like I would really want to know about them, like, what do they love, what do they hate, what they've been through, and really kind of, I really like digging deep into things. But it would definitely be a challenge, because your own self would kind of creep into the work. But yeah, I would definitely love to do that. Yeah.
Oh, it'd be fascinating to see you on Portrait Artist of the Year, trying to do some of those.
Oh, you read my mind. Yeah. Sort of painting someone from the inside out, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. It's almost, I think, so much of us, especially sometimes I'll go through social media and, everything is always so perfect at times. And, but I always tend to look at people and I think, wow, that's amazing house, amazing car, beautiful family, everything looks great. But, I used to do a lot of personal training and fitness work, and you really get to work closely with people. And, it's amazing how a lot of the time it was never really about the training. It was just the company and just needing somebody to talk to who isn't going to judge you, who isn't going to, try and ridicule you for anything. So, that really inspired my art as well, like kind of showing that even though that I'm giving you this image on social media or when I see you out and about, on the inside, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And I just kind of hope that I kind of give people the courage to kind of let go of all these things that you're afraid of and just put it out into the world, because, you could end up helping somebody else by talking about your pain or your difficulties or even your joy. So I think that's kind of what I'm getting at with the work.
It's being real, isn't it? I think there's a very much a lack of it on social media. Even, I mean, we've spoken about this before, haven't we, Tara, where, you'll see perhaps somebody having a cup of coffee and, their coffee cup's draped with fairy lights and you've got a candle flickering and everything looks perfect. But the reality is, when you sort of face the other way, they've got the washing hanging out in the kitchen, and they've got dishes piled up, and it's just a kind of image at the end of the day. And I love the nitty gritty of reality, to be honest. I think I prefer that, and that's the kind of thing that catches my eye. And I think that's what I respect most about people who do post, in a far more of a real, genuine way. And I think it's something we need more of online. And again, like with art, we say this so many times, don't we, Tara, that people are afraid to post a scrappy sketch because they think it's not as perfect as someone else's sketch that they've shown, because that person's shown all of the beautiful sketches in their sketchbook that have taken them ages, and they've not shown the ones that went wrong. And I think it's great when people can share the whole part. The whole thing about art is it doesn't all go right, does it? Sometimes, like you said, you get horror stories, you think, oh, that's not going to see the light of day. But sometimes, not always, we don't always want to show everything, of course, but do love when people do share that side of things as well. I think it makes us feel normal.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is just me being nosy, Nick, but are you working in the studio? Because you sound like you made so many paintings that I don't know where you'd put them.
Yeah, I'm in a beautiful studio called my bedroom, yeah.
Where are you putting all these paintings that you did over lockdown then?
Well, a lot of them were just like in little sketchbooks and things. So, I just I've got everything on top of my wardrobe, and then but at the moment I've got a exhibition that I'm working on next year. So I've got all these like huge canvases in this tiny little room, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, and I'm going to take a picture of it and put it on Instagram once everything's complete, so people can see like the reality of, you know, trying to make things work when you're an artist. So,
yeah. I'd imagine you in this big room with the white walls and stuff. Obviously, you got that wrong then.
Yeah, it's like the complete opposite.
Yeah. So what inspires you and your work?
What inspires me, you know, oh gosh, I think like anything can inspire me. You know, the other day I was walking down the street and I saw that somebody had spilt like a strawberry smoothie from a coffee shop, and it was right next to a blue door, and on the blue door there was all sorts of this yellow text, and I just thought, God, that looks beautiful. And I kind of held on to that moment until I got home, and then just started creating. But what I created had nothing to do with the actual door or the smoothie. It was just, it inspired me to just bring something out of myself. And that's usually how it starts, really. You know, things that have absolutely nothing to do with what I've been through or what I create, you know, just tend to, you know, get me going.
So it wasn't even like you didn't even take the colours or anything that you'd seen. It was just sort of that moment spurred you on.
Well, yeah, it was the colours, like the contrast between the colours, but also that moment. Yeah, it was just like there was something about that moment that just, I don't know, it just made me want to let go. And I'll start thinking, did the person who spilt the smoothie realize that, were they paying attention to all the colours that were happening, or were they just frustrated that they spilt it and they ran back and got another one? And you know, like my mind just starts working into
it's amazing the difference how an artist will think when they see something compared to how somebody who doesn't really, you know, isn't a creative person would just see that as a mess, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite artists that you admire, and if you do, what is it about them that you admire so much?
Yeah, there's quite a few. I love when I was a kid. I remember I was in the first artwork I ever saw was by Salvador Dali, and I remember I was in a bookstore with my mother. I was probably like 6 or 7 years old, and I think she was going to buy, I think it was called like Pride and Prejudice, I don't know, one of those types of books. And I saw this book, and on the cover it was like a naked white lady surrounded by bumblebees and pomegranates and elephants. And I just turned to my mum and I said, like, I need that book. I don't know. That is just there's something about it. And she just looked at it and then looked at me and was like, no.
Are you sure it just wasn't the naked lady?
Yeah. Yeah. There's me trying to sound all artistic. No.
The truth is out.
Yeah, Salvador Dali. I love Jean-Michel Basquiat, George Condo, Una Kazan. Gosh, I love a lot of like 1940s expressionism. Yeah, all that kind of stuff. And you know, there's just something about the textures and the emotion in the work. You know, with Jean-Michel, you know, he was like a young black artist at a time when there weren't many people like him kind of breaking into the art world. And, you know, him just kind of telling his story and, you know, all these different things just, oh gosh, it's, you know, it gets you so excited. But
I love his work. Oh, I've got one of the books of his stuff. It's so good.
Oh man, yeah, he's fantastic. But yeah, like artists like that really just kind of get me going, you know, who kind of have a story to tell, really. And
yours almost has a sort of street art type feel. I don't know if you're into kind of street art.
Mm.
Yeah, do you know what's so funny? I don't even ever think about these things until people say them to me, and then I look back and say, "Oh God, yeah, you're right." But yeah, I think you know, I remember I walked away from basketball. I remember I was going through a really difficult period. And I just kind of spent a lot of time just kind of, you know, traveling a little bit. And one thing I used to love to do was like kind of walk behind, you know, say if you have restaurants on like a main street, I would always love kind of going down the side street and going around the back of the restaurants where you would find all these stickers and, you know, people promoting things and graffiti. And, you know, it's just so much beauty in that, you know, and And I think that's what really inspires my work as well, that chaos, that accidental beauty that you would find in these moments of, I remember I was in Holland. I hope I'm not rambling on too much.
No, this is great.
No, definitely not.
So when I took a year off basketball, I remember I went to Holland and just to meet up with some friends and just kind of help me kind of, bring me back to life, I guess. And, like that's what I would do. I would go behind the backs of these restaurants and you would see a sticker for, I don't know, maybe Snoop Dogg's going to be performing. And then next to that, there's somebody, promoting their skateboard brand. And, and it just created this beautiful, picture, like just this build up years and years of all this, all these promotional stickers and posters. And I just thought, God, this is beautiful. This is real life right here, And sometimes I would think, I wonder if they think, oh, let's say if they have like a pink sticker and they're promoting their student night, if they think about, oh, I'm going to place it here because there's yellow over there, like were they thinking about the composition or were they just like sticking it on there and trying to leave as soon as possible before the police come? So yeah, that kind of stuff I think really helped my style as well.
I mean, because you use stickers, don't you? Well, I think I've seen those stickers, the Disney ones.
Oh yeah, well with the Disney ones, that's all stuff that I've just drawn on there.
Oh, are they? Oh, right. Sorry, I assumed you'd sort of got found, or you'd bought stickers that kind of went in there.
Yeah, there was. I think I've used. There was a few stickers I used at one period of time, but yeah, all the characters and things. It's just me just drawing them on there. But yeah, I'm definitely inspired. I love using a lot of characters to tell the stories as well, though.
So where did those characters come from? Were they the ones that you used to draw when you were a kid?
No. When I was a kid, I used to draw a lot of like really cool, like hip hop type people.
All right.
And like really bizarre looking characters. Because have you guys heard of a show called Spitting Image?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're not old enough to hear that, are you?
No.
Yeah, well, I was a kid when it was popular. I didn't really understand it too much because it was a lot of politics, and I was just a little child. But there was a guy on my street who used to. He was one of the character designers for the show, and so he would always come to the house, and he would he knew my father, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm working on this, I'm doing that." So that kind of, I think that's where it comes from, a lot of those characters, like being introduced to it through this guy who worked on the show. So
didn't it come back recently? I'm sure it did. Spitting Image.
Yeah.
I know there was Boris Johnson in it, wasn't there? It was hilarious.
Yeah, I think they have a channel on YouTube now where they're just kind of ripping apart politicians again, and, people. So.
Well, that's a cool person to know, though. I'd love to know.
Oh, yeah.
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 The ideas. So you were part of a group exhibition with the Mitochondria Gallery in the summer. Can you tell us how that came about?
Yeah, so pretty much I was when I kind of started posting these portraits that I've been working on, I was fighting hard to just get recognized. So you hashtag, you interact as much as possible, and I was just like hoping that I could start selling some works. But they just DM'd me. They just DM'd me on Instagram. I don't know how they found my work. I should probably ask them. But yeah, they just asked me, we have an exhibition coming up, and your work might possibly work alongside the other artists and the ideas that we have. So just send us all your stuff. So I sent them like 4 portraits that I thought were, pretty decent, and then they were like, right, we'll take them. And then I just sent them over there to America. That's pretty much how it started.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I'm still kind of working with them with this solo exhibition. So
I mean, I went and had a look. There's some quite cool artists. There's some real cool art in there, isn't there?
Yeah. They work with so with Mitochondria, they kind of they focus on a lot of like Black artists or mostly African or people who have like an African descent. So so they it's really good that they're giving people of color like a voice, and but not just one, but all different stories, because all Black people have different stories. Everyone's from a different world. So you know, you might have somebody who grew up in Africa who is talking about all the different street scenes that they saw as a kid. You've got me who grew up in England, and yeah, so it's really good. It was really good, a good place to start out. Yeah.
It's weird though, isn't it? When you get direct messages on Instagram like that, you kind of, did you get that feeling, oh, you know, could I just be sending my work somewhere and it's just never going to be, you know, seen again? And is it a spam sort of thing? Because Tara and I, we've had this, haven't we, Tara? We've been approached to do things and be like, it sounds
real?
too good to be true. Is it real, sort of thing? So yeah, I want, you know, do you ever get that when you get a message? How do you recognize straight away when something's real and when something's not?
Well, I've spent years of people telling me how much they love my artwork, and we've got this amazing gallery in Milan, but all you have to do is pay $6,000. I'll be honest with you, immediately I just thought it's a scam. It's a scam, honestly, because that's all I'd ever experienced on Instagram. There's never before that did anyone take any real interest. It was always, hey, we really like your work, or hey, pay this much money. And I just thought to myself, you know, I went on, basically like probably what a lot of other artists do. You go on Google and I looked them up and I was like, okay, I'm not seeing any type of mitochondria scam artists anywhere. And I just really did as much research as possible. And even when it came to sending my work, I was almost like, oh God, do you know what? Screw it. If they steal it or it's a scam and they take my bank details, and I'm like, so be it. But, you know, every opportunity, you know, you just have to, with these type of opportunities, I just took the risk. But absolutely, it wasn't until I actually, you know, ended up selling the pieces and you know, got paid that I was like, oh my God, thank God for that.
Well, you took the risk, but you were very careful to start with.
You
did your research. That's important. Yeah.
And you sold all the pieces that you sent out, which is great.
It was, like each week they just contacted me and said, right, we've sold another one. Right, you sold all 4 pieces.
Wow.
And, you know, I just honestly, I just broke down, you know, because, you know, what, like as an artist, like, you go through so much, man, you know, and it's so hard to try and navigate, especially for me, not knowing anything about the art world. And, you know, like, you know, sometimes I'm saying these things, but like prior to this, it was it's so much of just, you know, putting in so much and not getting anything. And you really have to be passionate about it. And, you know, but yeah, it was a good feeling for things to, you know, just for people to actually recognize you, you know.
So like Tara, you're teaching, aren't you, in the you're one of the guest artists on the Let's Face It 2022, the portrait course. So if anyone were to join along with that, what will people expect to learn in your lessons?
Also, before I even answer that, I just want to say that Tara was actually, sorry, not Tara, but with
Kara?
Kara, yeah. All these Aras, sorry. There's she was actually the first person to reach out to me for anything at all.
All right, cool.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was.
What did she say? What to ask you to teach, or?
Yeah. And I remember thinking, "Holy crap! Like this is." I don't know anything about teaching, you know, and I'm just still learning. But yeah, she contacted me on Instagram and just was, you know, that was a huge confidence booster for me, you know. And but yeah, I hope to just kind of give people an insight into my process and why I do what I do. And, you know, because, you know, certain people that I'm around are still kind of like sporty people. So they think it's just this absolute random chaos that I've come up with. So it's going to be nice to kind of, you know, take people inside my way of thinking and not getting too deep and too heavy and trying to make it enjoyable for people, you know. So I don't want people in tears by the end of it, you know.
That's the thing, is it, making it fun? I think that's half the battle then, isn't it?
I'm looking forward to taking that lesson, I must admit.
Awesome.
So what are your future plans for your art?
I would love to, I would love to just, you know, maybe really kind of get my work seen by as many people as possible. Like, I think it'd be, you know, I'd love to, you know, have my work in, you know, work with a gallery at some point, you know, and just continue to kind of just exhibit my work, to be honest. That's my biggest thing, is just kind of getting my work out into the world, and hopefully it can, inspire people and, just maybe help people, man, because, especially after the year we just had, a lot of people are still trying to bounce back, and hopefully I can bring some sort of energy, to their lives, and, bring people back to life, and, let them know that, you're not the only one going through it. We're all kind of struggling at times. But sorry, I'm just trying to exhibit as much as possible. Yeah.
So haven't you got on exhibit at the moment, or is that coming up, the one in Texas?
That's coming up. My first solo show is coming up on the 10th of December, so I'm really excited about that. And I've got another one next year in London. So yeah, those are the two things that I'm working on at the moment. Yeah.
So are you flying out to Texas for the exhibition, or do they do that when you're not there?
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it, unfortunately, because I still need to get my my jab.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to get that pretty soon, because it just make, when I looked at, all the things you go through in traveling, it's...
gosh, it's a nightmare.
It really is, yeah. So I'm going to get jabbed.
Oh, it's a shame, yeah.
I know.
Have you had your first one?
No, not yet. Because you know what?
Right.
I've just been in the studio painting, so I haven't had like interaction with people,
No.
So now I'm realizing, like, oh crap, I need to get out. And so I'm just going to be like, just fill me up, man. Whatever you got to do.
Just pump me up, yeah. I've got a really interesting question for you. And I've been thinking about asking you this because your art just begs the question, really. And it's a question we asked our listeners a while back. And that was, if a therapist was to analyse you through your art, what do you think they would make of you? What do you think they'd say?
Just throw that one in, Sandra.
This wasn't written down, so I'm sorry. It's just that when I look at your work, I think, I really want to know what he thinks, what his answer is to this question.
I think even a therapist would go running, man, for the hills. Oh man, I think if I'm honest, I would say that I think one thing a therapist would say is there's a lot of pain in the work, and I think that's the first thing, because that's a lot of that's what comes out. A lot of it, it's like the canvas is like your best friend. It's like your therapist, But yeah, I think a therapist would see a lot of pain, but also a lot of drive and courage, and that kind of stuff. Because I feel like this is my way of kind of like, I'm almost like digging my way out of trying to get out of a really bizarre space that I was in, and so. But I think in the future, I think maybe my work might change. The more I continue to heal from certain things, and
yeah.
But yeah.
Do you think when there's pain on the canvas, it releases it from you a little? Do you know what I mean? So the more pain on the canvas, the less pain inside you. Do you know what I mean by that? Am I making sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. That's a huge part of why I love doing what I do. Sometimes during, like, when I start, I'm all excited, and then certain things start flooding out, and then it gets a bit like uncomfortable. That's why I use a lot of characters to kind of soften the blow of what I'm trying to say. But yeah, once it's all said and done, like, I'm just like slumped on the floor, like, oh, thank you, like, go away now, just get the hell out of here. It feels so good. It's like, it's like bit by bit, you're just kind of getting rid of all this clutter, and just, and just kind of I hold on to a lot of the things that feel good. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
It's almost like, isn't it? I don't know whether you feel like this, but when your head is so full of crap, you kind of like, it's like, I don't know if you remember, you're probably way too young to remember the shot Benetton. You'll remember it, Tara.
Oh, thanks. Yes, I
And it was a shot where absolutely nothing was hung up. Everything was folded up, color coordinated, and neatly just put in really neatly onto the shelves. And it was just it looked amazing when you walked in, but it was kind of, I think when you're kind of splurging on a canvas, it's a bit like getting your messiest, most untidy drawer that's full of just, screwed up clothes, taking them out and ironing them all, folding them all up, color coordinating them all, putting them all back, and then shutting the drawer so it looks like a Benetton drawer. That's how I think of it, when it's kind of way of tidying up your brain a little bit, maybe.
Absolutely. That's a great way to describe it. Yeah, it really is. It's just kind of, figuring things out, getting them back in place, and, making things feel a bit more comfortable and stable again. But yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So where can people find out more about you online?
Pretty much all I've got now is my Instagram, which is at Nick George Art. But I'm working on, maybe putting together a website and developing my Facebook a bit. But yeah, for now, it's just Instagram, really.
Excellent.
Well, it's been a fascinating chat. Sorry about throwing that last question in.
It's all good.
No, it really has been fantastic to talk to you. We've certainly learned a lot. And thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. This has been fantastic. I really enjoyed this. You're very pleasant. It was very warm feeling. It was good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, perhaps you'd like to share it and leave a review for us on iTunes.